What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official preview and prediction on the 2025 College Football Playoff National Championship matchup between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It all comes down to this. The 2024-25 season will be officially over after this national championship game is completed. So I'm going to give you my full preview and prediction on this matchup. Going to go through stats for both teams, and then we'll take a look at both teams, give you my thoughts about their previous 5 games of 2024, and we'll see who the favorite of this game is, which you already know who that is, and then I'll give you my official prediction at the end of this video of how I think the game's going to go down. So again, the final game of 2024-25 college football season. It's sad that the season is coming down to an end, but we got one more game, and that, of course, is the national championship. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And we'll start here with stats for both of these teams. We'll start with the Buckeyes of Ohio State. In points per game, this Ohio State team averages 35 points per game, so just right around that 35-point marker. This Ohio State offense, though, like I mentioned, several times throughout the predictions, they have been so much better ever since that loss to Michigan. They have been so explosive on the offensive side of the football. It wasn't really that explosive in the game against Texas, but they were still able to kind of, rely on their defense a little bit in order to kind of win that game. In total yards per game, though, on the offensive side of the football, they're averaging 428.3 yards of total offense. That number has since gone up. Again, that number was a little bit lower when they first entered the playoff, but now it's gone up just a little bit here for Ohio State. Again, they've been more of a passing attack team according to the passing yards per game. This team averages 265.1 yards of passing in the passing game. Of course, Will Howard has been so consistent here throughout the playoff. You look at his numbers on the year, 3,779 yards. 33 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and also he's been taking care of the football pretty well. So Will Howard definitely underrated as a quarterback. He has veteran experience as well. Again, first half of the year, since the first half of the season, he has just been so much better and definitely again more accurate here throughout this playoff. In rushing yards per game, that's about average for Ohio State. This is a team that doesn't really run the football very often like they used to in the first half of the year. They do have a pretty good running back duo in Quayshawn Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. Quayshawn Judkins is close to that 1,000-yard mark. Same thing with TreVeyon Henderson. TreVeyon Henderson, though, has 132 carries, 967 yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. But both of those guys can catch the football, so that might be a big advantage there for Ohio State, definitely in the passing game. But again, just about average at running the football, 163.2 yards of running on the ground. Then on defense, this is the strength of this team. Passing yards allowed per game, 161.1 yards of passing. This is one of the, top secondary teams in the country. They can just, play really good defense in the secondary. They are so good at coverage downfield, and they can also get after, the quarterback in the secondary as well. Rushing yards allowed, this is a team that can stop the run pretty well, only giving up a 89.9 yards of running game on the ground. So that's what Ohio State's been really good at this year, is stopping the run. And you could tell by this defense that they're definitely one of the top defenses in the country. So yeah, defensively in the rankings, they're first on defense, and then of course offensively 30th on offense. But again, that Ohio State offense has been so much better ever since they started this playoff, field and everything, ever since that Tennessee game and also that Oregon game. They have just been so explosive on the offensive side of the football. For Notre Dame, let's go to their stats. This team averaging 37 points per game, so a little bit of an advantage there for Notre Dame in points per game. Points per game don't really matter, but you look at the total offense per game, they're averaging 405.1 yards of total offense, so a little bit lesser than Ohio State. Notre Dame's not a very explosive offense, but this is a team that can score on both sides of the football, because their defense can also score some scoop-in scores, and they can also score on some interceptions. But mostly their scoring comes from their running game. Again, total yards per game is only at 405, but that's coming from the running game. You look at the passing yards per game, it's not really there for them. 194.3 yards of passing. That's not really a high number. Riley Leonard has not thrown the football that much, but Still pretty good numbers, 2,606 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He's also kind of taking care of the football. He wasn't really that accurate in the Penn State game, in the throwing game, but he made some pretty good throws in the second half. In rushing yards per game, though, this is the strength here of this Notre Dame offense at running the football. They got a pretty good running back in Jeremiah Love, 159 carries on the year, 1,121 yards, like 1,121 yards, and then 17 rushing touchdowns. Very underrated running back, in my opinion. And then you also got Riley Leonard, the quarterback that can run the football. Yeah, this Notre Dame team is just known for their running game this year on the offensive side of the football. Then on defense and passing yards allowed per game, this team giving up 165.3 yards of passing. And you look at the rankings. These are actually the two top secondary teams in the country. So this is kind of the battle here between two really good secondary teams. It kind of comes down who could be the best secondary here in the national championship. In rushing yards allowed per game, Notre Dame just about pretty average at stopping the run, 133 yards of rushing allowed per game. That's a little bit of a lot, but it's not really that bad, to be honest. Again, they're still top 10 in the rankings on defense. Offensively, though, in the rankings, again, they're not an explosive offense, just like, Ohio State is right there in the 30th spot, but offensively, they're 53rd, but this is a team that can score points just thanks to their running game. And then defensively in the rankings, they're 9th on defense. So we got two top 10 defenses here going at it in the national championship. Let's now get into the full preview of this national championship game. Again, it's Ohio State versus Notre Dame. This game going to be held next Monday, January the 20th, and it will be at 7:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. Ohio State spread going in favor of them by 8.5. I already kind of mentioned the spread, of course, throughout the week. Over and under is at 45.5. So that's the first time I'm seeing the over and under, and it doesn't really surprise me. It's at 45.5. We're kind of expecting a low-scoring defensive battle. You got two good defensive teams. Offensively, both teams, have a different kind of strength. Ohio State's passing game is definitely the strength, and you got Notre Dame's running game. That's the strength for this team. But again, that spread there, Ohio State favored by 8.5. It did surprise me when they were 9.5-point favorites, but I think a lot of people like Ohio State in this game. They're not really giving Notre Dame a chance in this one. I tell you what, I think Notre Dame's going to have a chance to at least compete. I don't really expect it to be a blowout. Ohio State, the way they've been playing throughout this playoff, if they continue to play like they've been throughout the playoff, except for Oregon and Tennessee, and what they did to Texas on the defensive side of the football, then it might be a blowout of a championship game. But if Notre Dame at least gets like 5 or 6 yards per carry in the running game, if they can run the football in this Buckeye defense, then it probably will be a close game. I think they can probably do that, to be honest. Again, this is a game that I don't really want to see it being a blowout. I know Notre Dame has struggled in like big postseason games, but that was under Brian Kelly. This is Marcus Freeman now, and they've made it to this far, so they've made it to the national championship. This is definitely a different Notre Dame team compared to where it was back in the Brian Kelly era. And if you look at Marcus Freeman, he is 0-2 against the Buckeyes. We mentioned that a couple of days ago, a few days ago, my 5 reasons video for Notre Dame. If Marcus Freeman just can motivate his players to play with this Ohio State team, they can beat them. I'm not saying Notre Dame is going to beat them, but they can beat this Ohio State team. But Ohio State, the way they've been playing here throughout the playoff, that could be a big advantage here for the Buckeyes. And, of course, this game, will be at Atlanta. The matchup predictor does favor Ohio State here. They give them about a 55.4% chance to beat Notre Dame, and then for Notre Dame, it's at 44.6%. So, yeah, just my thoughts here on this matchup. I think it's going to be a good one here. Again, I don't want to see it be a blowout. I kind of want to see a close national championship game that really comes down to the wire. Just like, maybe last year's championship, it didn't come down to the wire, but I do want to see this championship game really be close. I don't really think the Buckeyes are going to cover that spread at 8.5. I think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people are not really expecting it to be. And I think it will be a low-scoring game, just according to the over and under. Let's now look at both teams' previous 5 games for 2024. First off, for Ohio State, they come in with a record of 13-2. They beat Indiana back on November 23rd, 38-15. Of course, Indiana was undefeated by that time, and Ohio State destroyed them with their defense. And then, of course, they lost to Michigan, really hurt this Ohio State team. They lost this game 13-10. They lose for the 4th consecutive year in a row, but there was so much doubt about Ohio State heading into the first round of the playoff, but they dominated Tennessee 42-17. Of course, Jeremiah Smith was really big in that game. I believe he had like over 10 catches, if I'm not mistaken, and same thing with Oregon. But they beat Tennessee here in the first round of the playoff 42-17, defeated Oregon in the Rose Bowl back on New Year's Day 41-21, and then defeated Texas here in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl back on January the 10th, just this past Friday, 28-14. So you look at Ohio State's wins here in the playoff. The first couple of games were blowouts. The Texas game was definitely the toughest defense that they went up against. We thought it would be Oregon's defense, but instead it was Texas's defense that kind of give Ohio State some problems. Ohio State had like 9 penalties in that game, but with their red zone defense, Texas definitely had a chance to tie the game up, but instead Ohio State's red zone defense, one of the top red zone defenses in the country, made a big-time stop. They sacked Quinn Ewers, and they pick it up for a scoop and score. So that's Ohio State's previous games. Again, they come in with a record of 13-2. Notre Dame at 14-1. Their one loss, of course, coming back all the way in week number 2 against Northern Illinois. But beside that, they beat Army 49-14 on November 23rd. In rivalry week, they beat USC 49-35. Of course, a couple of pick sixes kind of changed the game from there. A couple of turnovers that Notre Dame needed. So with that being said, they won that game 49-35. After that, in the first round of the playoff, the first ever 12-team playoff game, they defeated Indiana 27-17. The game was actually not really close in the first half. I mean, you look at that score and say this was a tough battle, but it really wasn't. Notre Dame dominated the first half, of course, thanks to their running game. Defeated Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl 23-10. Of course, that game kind of got delayed until like January the 2nd because of the tragedy that happened in New Orleans, but either way, a win's a win. Notre Dame's run game dominated that game as well. And then, of course, this past Thursday, January the 9th, they defeated Penn State in the Capital One Orange Bowl, 27-24. Of course, Penn State throwing an interception and then Notre Dame capitalizing on a game-winning field goal. So those are the previous 5 games for 2024 for both of these teams. Let's now move on to my prediction here for the national title game. So again, it's Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Ohio State 13-2, Notre Dame 14-1. Both of these teams in the first ever 12-team playoff national championship. Like I said, I don't want to see a blowout. I want to see it be a close game. I think I want to see it come down to like a one-possession type game. And I think it's probably going to come down to that. I mean, I don't really feel confident with it, but again, Notre Dame is a team that I think is going to really be fired up for this one. Again, they've lost to this Ohio State team now for like 2 years in a row. Again, these two teams met back in the 2022 and 23 regular season games, and Ohio State won both of those games. The first one was kind of a little bit of a big game for Ohio State. They won by double digits, and then the second game was a little bit closer. So you can tell that Marcus Freeman has kind of been, building this Notre Dame team to at least compete with some of the top teams in the country. And I think he has that kind of team to do that. This will be a close game. It does come down to the wire. But I just feel like this Ohio State team, the way they've been performing here throughout the playoff, let's say this. Let's say Notre Dame has the football probably inside the 20-yard line. They get a few good run plays, and then, of course, maybe a turnover probably will change the difference, or maybe Notre Dame probably has to come up with like a big-time, fourth down conversion from the 20-yard line, or also they can kick a field goal. But, Ohio State, either way, if it does come down to a field goal and try to force it into overtime, I think they're going to block that kick. But also, if it does come down to the fourth down play from the back of the 30-something yard line, I think Ohio State's red zone defense is going to come up huge in this one. Maybe a turnover does change the difference, or it could be a game-winning field goal, to be honest. But I think Ohio State does win the national championship. They win this one 24-21. Again, I don't want to see a blowout. I want to see Notre Dame at least compete here in this game. And again, Notre Dame's run game can get things going in this game. That could be probably causing problems here for the Buckeyes. And like I said, if they get at least like 5 or 6 yards per carry in the running game, then this could be a really tough game for Ohio State to handle. But if they probably push back Notre Dame at least like 1 or 2 yards per carry, then it could be a blowout. It could be a win by Ohio State by double digits, but I do want to see a close game that comes down to the wire. I don't really want to see the Buckeyes win by 8.5. I know they've dominated the playoff throughout the 12-team playoff era so far, but I think Ohio State wins it though, still 24-21. I have been liking the Buckeyes ever since that win over Oregon and also that blowout win over Tennessee. So that's my official prediction here for the 2025 College Football Playoff National Championship. What's your prediction for this game? And give me your thoughts about my prediction. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down in the comments below and let me know how you think the game's going to go down. Thanks for watching this video, and thank you for making another college football season great here for my channel. And stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.